new drug. It has been used on, let's say, an 8-year-old girl who gets her period early, okay? It does happen. It's what's called, it's just, she gets her period early. I'm not even trying to come up with the name. So she starts very young, and the doctors say, look, we're going to put you on Lupron to see if we can maybe just re-trigger the brain to just have her start at a normal time, a later time. So what they'll do is they'll give you and they'll buy you about a year. Lupron, a girl, goes on for about a year. And I think it's injections, what they do, and they give them a shot, and it lasts for 6 months, and it will stop their puberty, and then give another one. And so the idea is that we buy you a year. Hopefully when this year's up, her body will wait and she'll start a normal period at 12, 13, whatever it might be, okay? That's what we've historically done with young girls who get their period early. But what's happening is now we're giving Lupron to people who are actually in puberty. So they're supposed to be going through puberty now, and now we're stopping the puberty, okay? So let me tell you about what it will do. It will delay sexual development and the start of a woman's period. So if she hasn't gotten her period, she will not get it, it will stop it from coming. It will slow your bone growth and affect one's height. So actually a lot of people who have transitioned in their late 20s, they've transitioned young, but now they're in their 20s, and they want to detransition back. They're going back, but a lot of the men are now shorter than they would have been because the puberty blockers stopped their growth. Okay, so they can be shorter. It's important for you to know that Norway, Finland, Sweden, UK, France, Denmark have now turned their backs. Remember, the Dutch protocol came from that part of the world. They've now turned their backs on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and surgery for minors. They've started to say it does not work. And so now the treatments that they are putting forward in Europe are actually more mental health counseling. Okay? Canada is digging in their heels, and I'm not sure why Canada is being so stubborn, but they are. And the US has been changing for the last couple years. My personal opinion, I think it was a massive reason why Trump won the election. I'm not making a political statement. What I'm saying is the culture of America started to shift. And Trump was adamant that he was not in support of that, and Kamala said she was. And the culture had started to shift, and the Democrats missed it. This is why you hear Gavin Newsom in California, the most liberal, governor, who previously would transition anything that breathed. He's now saying, because, he wants to run for president, you can tell. Now there's videos of him coming out saying, I never really agreed on the transition, on letting boys play in girls' sports. I thought that was so bad. Dude, you've allowed that in your state. I've literally watched young girls sit before California Congress. It was like a smaller panel of whatever, the ethics committee, whoever they were, arguing and saying, please don't let the boys in my sports. And they basically just shut her down. You're transphobic, you're blah, 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 blah. So now you want to tell me as the governor that you don't really believe men are supposed to be women's sports? That's a lie. The only reason he's doing that is because he recognized the culture has moved. And he knows he can't win if he holds that full 100% supporting trans stuff, okay? So America has shifted. And I'm just saying you saw it in the last election. I'm not speaking for or against Trump, okay? All right, so bone density, you have bone density issue. There are some reports of some young girls getting osteoporosis. It's another thing with some of these GLP-1s. Side note, you gotta be really careful because the GLP-1s basically stop your appetites, this big weight loss drugs that everybody's on, and they stop your appetite. So you're not eating as much, and so you lose a lot of weight. But if you're not eating, you're not getting in nutrients and minerals and vitamins, so your body has to get them from somewhere. And it starts pulling them from your bones. So some of these people on GLP-1s are developing osteoporosis at teenage ages, okay? Same thing with these puberty blockers, okay? It will cause you to have bone density issues. It'll disrupt normal brain development. Okay, let me talk about this for a second. Ladies, it's known that the ladies tend to mature at younger ages and quicker than the boys do. There's nothing wrong with the gentlemen. It's just biologically the way things happen. Okay. So in other words, there are 2 times, guys and girls, that the brain match, well, let me speak, all right, guys, actually. With the gentlemen, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with intersex tomorrow. With the guys, there are 2 times when brain, maybe a third, when brain changes are heavily influenced by your testosterone, okay? First time is when you're in utero. 7 to 8 weeks in utero and your body starts to form into male. The high levels of testosterone that your body, once it forms testes and testes produce testosterone, that testosterone shoots to your brain and helps masculinize your brain. Okay? So you really are born with a male or female brain, actually. That's a true thing. Your brain is male or female before you're ever born. Okay? The second time that happens, and once again, I've heard there's a third, but I haven't looked into that one yet. But definitely the other time that happens is during puberty. And during puberty, your levels of testosterone skyrocket in the guys, and it causes a maturization of the brain. So during puberty, it's very important for guys to have that second dose of testosterone because it helps with their brain maturation. Now, I don't need to tell you how important the maturization process is for young guys, because here's what's happening, guys. Testosterone gives you a whole lot of really great, strong feelings of like boldness and courage and aggression. And you're pumping, these high levels of testosterone that happen during puberty are like pumping through 14 and 15-year-old and 16-year-old guys. And then what we do is we give them automobiles that go 120 miles an hour, and we put them behind them, and they're like, yes, right? They're so excited because it's the testosterone that is pumping through them, and they're like, let's jump off a really high mountains and let's die. I mean, they just do all kind of wild stuff, okay? And this is why the insurance rates are the highest for guys 25 and under, right? Or 24 and under, right? Because they know that they do these kind of things. That's because the testosterone has to work, and it takes a period of time up until about 25 before that really finishes fully developing in the male mind. Okay, so ladies, be patient with them, okay? It takes them a little longer, but that's okay. That's biology. All right? But this is why we know that they do I have a friend who's a mother of 4 boys, and I just feel bad for her because they are always jumping off of high things. And they're all like, the youngest might be 18 and they go on up. And one of them got married, so that helps tame him a little bit. But they're just always doing things, and she's always afraid they're going to die because they're just wild, right? It's just the biology, it's just the testosterone. Okay? And that's what it does, which is right. It's good, it's healthy, it's supposed to be there. Okay, you want those guys to be not afraid, because the reality is if I see a bug, I'm like, which guy is going to get that from me? Because I'm not touching it. Okay, so we want actually all that to be happening in the guys, all right? Because we don't get it. So when you take puberty blockers, guys, it's going to stop that brain maturization from happening at that important stage. It's going to cause issues with fertility as well, which is important to know. All right, testosterone. So if I start taking testosterone, all right, here's what's going to happen. The voice is going to get deeper. It's going to actually cause your vocal cords to lengthen, and that's what makes your voice get deeper. There will be an increase in body and facial hair in the woman. So more hair on her body and her face, and even an influence of muscle development as well. Receding hairline, and maybe even premature baldness. I remember watching a YouTube video of a young lady who's probably 27, transitioned to male, detransitioned back. She's already going through premature baldness and a receding hairline, okay? So that you don't get that back, okay? When you start taking testosterone, it's going to cause some of that all to happen. There will be a reshifting of the fat on the body. A lot of times people think, oh, well, this person looks more feminine because their skull changed shape. Guys, there's no evidence at all that testosterone or estrogen changes your skeletal structure. So what it changes is it changes where your fat is put in your face, and that makes you look more feminine or more masculine. So it changes the location of the fat in your face, changes the location of the fat in your body, and that's what makes you look more masculine or feminine, okay? But it's not changing your skeletal structure. Testosterone in women can help relieve anxiety and depression. Similarly, estrogen in men can help relieve anxiety and depression. So what happens is I start taking testosterone and my depression gets better. And I'm happier, and I'm like, you see? I think it's the transitioning. The transitioning is what I needed. I'm so much happier, and really it's just the effect of the testosterone. It's not the transitioning, it's just the effect of the drug on my body. And just like in the guys, the testosterone leads women to be more bold and more unafraid. But it will affect short-term memory. It will increase moodiness and irritability. And testosterone can cause your blood to thicken. It can also cause muscle aches, sweating, increased sweating because it makes your pores get bigger. So that's why the girls don't sweat as much as the guys. You have smaller pores. Well, it makes your pores get bigger so that you start sweating more. And the deepening of the voice, the body, facial hair, the receding hairline, baldness, the reshifting of fat in the body, all of that is permanent even if I stop taking the testosterone. So once those things kick in, if it's 3, 4, 5 months for those things, once they all happen, you cannot go back. So even if I stop taking testosterone, if I've already started growing facial hair, I will have to shave still for the rest of my life. And I know a young lady who is a detransitioner, and you can tell she has stubble. She has to shave regularly. Okay? You cannot go back. You still have the lower voice. You cannot go back. Estrogen. When a guy takes estrogen, it is going to cause breast growth, what's called gynecomastia. It will cause a decrease in sweating because it'll shrink those pores down. There will be increase in body fat because girls carry more body fat than men do. So we do, just a biological reality. We have more body fat than they do. So it will cause them to gain a little bit more fat around the hips and the thighs, which is where girls carry their fat, and also it'll change where it's placed in the face. The muscle definition and muscle strength will deteriorate. Welcome to our world, guys, okay? You're going to lose some muscle definition and lose some muscle strength. You also lose body hair. However, if you already started growing in like your beard, that won't go away with estrogen. Okay, it might decrease a little bit, but you're still going to have that. You'd have to get laser treatment to get that removed. So the estrogen's not going to remove like your facial hair. But men are going to be at an increased risk for heart attacks, 5 times increased risk for blood clots, with thromboembolisms. And many people don't realize, and this is important for the guys to know, that men can get breast cancer. Okay, a lot of people don't realize that. Men can get breast cancer. It's just it's just much more uncommon for men than for a woman to get breast cancer. But when a guy takes estrogen, he's 46 times more likely to get breast cancer. Okay, so it's going to drastically increase his rate of getting breast cancer. Yeah, I think it's too high levels of estrogen for them. Oh, do they have a chance more than a woman who gets? Well, I don't know because I don't know what the percentage of women getting breast cancer is, but it isn't so much comparing the men to the women rate. It's just comparing the men who take estrogen versus the men who don't. That's the comparison. So the men who don't take estrogen are here, but the men who do are at 46 times. I don't know what the comparison is to women, but the idea is that the men have just way too high levels of estrogen that their bodies can't process, and that's going to cause all kind of issues. Things go away. Same thing with women. Okay, if you have too much estrogen, ladies, it causes all kind of problems with you too. Okay, so all of those things all of these hormones and things need to be in balance. Okay. Just like if you have too little estrogen, it's going to cause problems. All right. Now we got to talk about some things. Okay? So here's where I'm going to go as deep as I'm going to get. We're going to do it here. We're going to just get it all out. When it comes to a lot of the things that I said, those things are going to be permanent. They're not going to change. And I mentioned the things that are not going to change. However, there's other things that happen to your body in terms of your genitalia. Okay? So when a young girl takes testosterone to transition to a boy, her genitalia is going to grow because testosterone has that effect on young men, and it's supposed to. I'll leave it there. With the young men, when they take estrogen, it's going to cause part of their genitalia to shrink. That is permanent, and that cannot change. In other words, when a young lady who has actually gone through transitioning is taking testosterone, when she detransitions back, one of the things the young ladies talk about having a hard time with is fitting back into girl jeans. Because those skinny jeans are so tight and they can't fit into them because they're a little bit larger down there than they were before. Okay? That is permanent and it cannot be reversed. Same thing with the guys. This is why it starts to cause infertility issues with the guys, because it starts to shrink parts of their genitalia, and the girls end up with longer term discomfort. One more thing I got to tell you, hang in there. You doing okay? Yeah. Doing okay? All right. One more thing is that part of what happens when you do surgery is it's much easier, and I'm not saying it's good, I'm just saying it's easier to take someone who's a guy and make them into girl parts genitalia wise because there's more material to work with. Okay? It's much harder to go from girl to guy because there's less material to make guy parts with, okay? So as a result, they have to go to certain parts of your body to find material to make girls be more like guys. We doing okay? All right. So oftentimes what you'll see is they will cut skin from the forearm. And they will use that skin to add to a woman to give her more male type parts. Other times they will cut skin from like the stomach lining. Okay? Obviously, once you do that, guys, I mean, it's just, so what'll happen is that this gets indented. It doesn't really heal the same way, and it won't look even. It'll look like it'll be indented here a little bit from where they took the skin. That's as deep as I'm gonna go. Okay, if you handle that, we're good. We're going the other direction now, okay? But you need to know that this is what they will do, and this is what because they don't really have the ability to make women men and men women. With that said, I want to share with you a story. This is a gentleman who's named Tulip Ritchie. Tulip was transitioned way later in life, so I want to say late 20s, early 30s. He was an adult male, so he went through full male puberty. Okay, adult male, full male puberty. And then he decides, you know what? You know, he's not mentally well, and he decides that he's going to transition. He's getting therapy, all these kind of things. So he's doing that. And basically, the therapists get him to a point where after several years of estrogen, they tell him, look, you're already passable as a girl. If you don't get the surgery and go the final step, then we're going to discharge you from your therapy. And he was like, what? He was so scared to lose his therapy. But he didn't think he really wanted the surgery either. Regardless, he was mentally unwell, he was abusing drugs, he was participating in casual sex, but he didn't want to lose the therapy, so he got surgery in 2018. I want to read you, this is just screenshots of a Twitter post he did several years ago, and you can find videos on him. He speaks regularly, because he transitioned to female, got the surgery, only to realize later on, actually, I'm not a female, and he detransitioned back to being male. Okay, so he's a detransitioner. So I want you to go ahead and read this with me. And this is his words. I want to tell everyone what they took from us, what irreversible really means, and what that reality looks like for us. No one told me any of what I'm going to tell you now. Remember what I said the detransitioners say over and over again? Nobody told me. This is why I have to tell you. Because nobody told him. He is going to drop the F-bomb. But once again, I'm not using Christian sources. You guys are adults. I think you can handle it. Okay? Please don't call YWAM and say this woman came in and she, you know, like non-Christian sources, guys. You got to take what you're going to get, right? Okay. He says, I have no sensation in my crotch region at all because he got genitalia surgery. He got bottom surgery. No sensation in my crotch region at all. You could stab me with a knife and I wouldn't know. The entire area is numb, like it's shell-shocked and unable to comprehend what happened even 4 years on. And that's something that will never come back. One of the reasons why I got surgery. My sex drive died about 6 months on hormone replacement therapy. That's estrogen. Okay? So they pumped him full of estrogen and he lost his sex drive. At the same time, I was glad to be rid of it, but now 10 years later, I'm realizing what I'm missing out on and what I won't get back. Then there's the dreams. I dream often that I have both sets of genitals. In the dream, I'm distressed I have both. Why both, I think? I tell myself to wake up because I know it's just a dream. And I awaken into a living nightmare. In those moments of amnesia, as I would wake, I'd reach down to my crotch area expecting something that was there for 3 decades, and it's not. My heart skips a beat every single time. Then there's the act of going to the toilet. He's British, so he says toilet instead of bathroom. It takes me about 10 minutes to empty my bladder. It's extremely slow, painful, and because it dribbles, no matter how much I relax, it will then just go all over the entire area, leaving me soaked. So after cleaning myself up, I'll find moments later that my underwear is wet no matter how much I wipe. It slowly drips out for the best part of an hour. I never knew at 35 I ran the risk of smelling like pee everywhere I went. Now I get to the point where I'm detransitioned and the realization that this permanent is catching up with me. During transition, I was obsessive and deeply unwell. I cannot believe they were allowed to do this to me even after all the red flags. I wasn't even asked if I wanted to freeze sperm or want kids. Remember, he got genitalia surgery. They took out all his stuff. In my obsessive, deeply unwell state, they just nodded along and didn't tell me the realities, what life would be like. This isn't even the half of it, and this isn't regret either. This is grief and anger. bleep everybody who let this happen. And then his whole thread got deleted. And he says, I haven't deleted anything, by the way. The thread got mass reported. This is pre-Elon Musk Twitter when everything was being censored. And he says, that Twitter support, can you unhide my thread? Cheers. He goes, hey, we're back. Thanks, J.K. So J.K. Rowling, author of Harry Potter, has been very vocal about speaking against the trans movement. Very vocal. And she has taken every beating that could possibly, death threats, everything, for standing against the trans movement. And she must have said something on Twitter, and then somehow Twitter reposted it, put it back up. I want to introduce you to one more person. This is Jaleesa Vine. Jaleesa identified as a tomboy and came out as a lesbian at 14. People would pick on her because she was more masculine. So she lived as Tyler for 8 years before she woke up and realized she's a woman. Now, she still says she's supportive of trans people and she loves them. But I want to show you a video that she posted to YouTube several years ago, sharing about herself and where she is in life right now. She has since removed this video. Just want you to know she's since taken it down because she says it doesn't adequately reflect where she is now. But to me, I'm like, it still reflects where she was then, and I think it's important that we can learn some stuff from that. And so you will hear that her voice is lower. And if you look at her left arm when she's talking on this side, you will see that it's a little bit thinner because she had bottom surgery. So she had everything, breast removal, bottom surgery, and all of that. And you will see what her wrist, her forearm looks like. Okay, again, she's not Christian, so she's gonna drop an F-bomb, but you'll be okay.
I'm so sad. I just don't know how this happened. Like a virus or something, and just like infected me, and it happened so quickly. And it was like I was right there, like agreeing to every single thing, and I don't know how that happened. That now I can sit here and like look back and be like, why did I do that? It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. If I just would have waited. If I just would have waited. If I just sort of waited and let myself heal. I can't have kids. I'll never lose my virginity. Like, I feel like I'm left to just like accept the scraps of the life that I could have had. I had this full life that I'm now having to mourn, while also living in the present moment with the life that like feels just like the scraps of what could have been. I don't know how to be happy in that. You know, I don't know how to be okay with that. I hate when people are like, everything happens for a reason. Like, no, this didn't happen for a reason. You know, it's just a tragedy. Just call it what it is. I don't want to use the word indoctrinated, but I was young and I was sad and I was impressionable, and I thought that this would fix everything. I don't know what to do with like any of it. I think I just feel a lot different also though from most detrans girls because, or detrans women, detrans girls and women, because I've had bottom surgery. Every girl I know has it. You know, they still have this part of them. And I don't have that. Like, I don't have anything anymore. It's just so sad. Like, it just sucks so bad. This is just something I'll have to live with. You know, there's like no fixing it. There's no making it better. I have to live like this for the rest of my life and figure out a way to be okay with it. It's so scary and terrifying. It's like, right now I don't see that. I don't see that path. Maybe it exists, but right now it just feels so hard to see. And I don't know the way forward right now. I've been doing like little things for myself. I think I bought myself this green bikini, and that's really nice. You know, it's been really nice to just wear. I don't wear it out, but just like wearing it in my bathroom in the mirror and dancing around to Beyonce, and like just trying my best to feel empowered and embodied. And it just feels so like forward in my body. I just feel so detached from it. It's hard to look at it. It's hard to like accept that it's mine. Doing little things though, it's like just trying to find joy, trying to feel okay. And it's just always there. You know, I'm always here. Anywhere I go, I'm there. So I know I'm on this like road to self-love and self-acceptance, all while mourning this life I should have had. This life that never got to see the light of day. I'm not making this video for like sympathy or anything. It's just I'm wanting to express what's honestly going on in my reality right now as a detrans woman, as a woman who thought she was trans and transitioned, lived as trans for 8 years, had top surgery, had full hysterectomy, bottom surgery, went all the way as far as one could go, and then woke up and realized that I made the biggest fucking mistake of my life. I was so sure. You know, it's just crazy. It's all really hard right now. Like in the thick of it. You know, I think accepting that I am detransitioning was hard. But there was a reason why it took so long. And that reason was definitely to try and avoid the unavoidable. Which is all of this pain, all of this mourning, all of this loss, all of this like wreckage that I feel like I now have to sit with and try to figure out how to make a life out of. And bring in some kind of like reverence, some kind of like positivity, some kind of light. But it's so hard, you know? Because I don't feel like that about any of it. I'm angry, I'm sad. I'm consistently questioning like why this happened to me, how did this happen to me? Anyway, got some cool, exciting stuff starting in my life that is keeping me going right now. And while I'm processing all this like really deep, painful stuff, it's nice to have that. It's nice to have my green bikini. You know, it's nice to have that.
So God help us. It's tough stuff to watch, guys. Imagine making a decision at 14, 15, that you will have to live with at 80. That decision that you went along with because you didn't understand, you didn't know. Christian or not, that video should break our heart. That nobody, to have her reality be her reality, to wake up and be like, this is really my life. To walk around with her arm. You saw her arm. That's not the same. To not have her female parts. And who's going to love me like that? Who's going to accept me like that? So how do we process through this as believers? A couple things. Number one, emotions, feelings, and truth. Guys, emotions are real things. Feelings are real things. And truth is a real thing. And sometimes the emotions and feelings don't always convey truth. And part of what's happening in our culture is we're saying that the emotions and the feelings are the truth. But there are times, guys, when they lie to us and they deceive us. If I'm scared of going on elevators and I go to therapists, that therapist is going to say to me, Alycia, why are you scared of elevators? And I'm going to give her all my reasons. I was okay. The second visit, I come back. Maybe we talk about it again. But the third visit, she says, look, why don't we just go out in the hallway and just look at the elevator? We're not going to touch it. Let's just look at it. And I go out there and I'm sweating and my blood's running, you know, and I'm like shaky because I'm looking at this elevator. She's like, we're not touching it. We're just going to look at it. And the fourth visit, maybe she says, why don't you just stand there and touch the button? Don't go on it. Just touch the buttons. And I'm sweating and I'm shaking. And then maybe the fifth, sixth, or seventh visit, she says, why don't you just put a foot on it and then step out? Don't go in it. Just put your foot in and bring it back out. And then upcoming visits, eventually she gets me to stand in it. What is this therapist doing? What this therapist is trying to do is trying to teach my brain that it's overreacting about something, that the emotions, the feelings, the sensors, the awareness, everything that it's shooting in my direction, it is doing so irrationally. And what happens is the more I get used to that elevator, my brain, my thinking will align with reality, and I won't have those emotions and those feelings anymore. This is kind of something therapists do all the time. And essentially, Lisa, you don't have to be scared of the elevator. I get that you're shaking. I get that the feelings are telling you to run. I get all of that. That is real and true. But it isn't true for you, but it's not truth. And so often in our society, guys, we are allowing feelings to determine truth. Additionally, if the feeling is truth, if all I need to do is feel something for it to be true, then if I say I feel like a guy, well, then I'm a guy. That's it. If the feeling is truth, then as soon as I say I'm a guy, that's it. I should be a guy. The minute I go the next step and I start taking testosterone or I get surgery, I'm actually affirming that there's more to being a guy than just my feeling. I'm saying that there's actually a physical, biological aspect to being a guy. But I said that the physical, biological aspect of me being a woman on the front end was not to be listened to. It was incorrect. So how is it that my body, I ignore what the body is telling me on the front end and I pay attention to the feeling, but then I go get surgery on the back end and I actually say, now I'm going to listen to the body? The minute you get surgery is the minute that you're affirming that there is a biological component to you. But you ignored it on the front end and said that biological component doesn't apply to me being a female. But it only applies when I become male. You see how that's a contradiction? Guys, what makes you male and female is not how you feel. It's not your emotions. It's not what you like. It's not the colors you like. It's not the clothes you like. What makes you male or female, from a biological stance, and we'll get to this in intersex tomorrow, is if you're a sperm producer or an egg producer. If you're a sperm producer, you're a guy. If you're an egg producer, you're a girl. And that's it. It isn't even really chromosomes, which we'll get to tomorrow. Because chromosomes can get a little messy. Okay? So it doesn't matter what I feel, because no matter how much testosterone I make, it's not going to make me go from being an egg producer to a sperm producer. I can't do that. So I will just be someone who looks like a guy, but it still has eggs. So I will still be a female. Secondly, what is a woman? What does it mean to be a woman? Someone says to me, Alycia, why are you a woman? Oh, because I was born a girl. Well, how do you know you're a woman? I don't know. I don't feel anything. I don't know what the women feelings are. I don't know. This is just what I am. In other words, when we say, what is a woman? It's like, how do I know what it means to be a man if I've never been a man? So if I say, I'm a man, well, how do you know that? Have you ever been a man? No. Well, I'm Sudanese. Well, how do you know? You ever been Sudanese? No. Well, I'm Chinese. Well, how do you know it's like to be Chinese? You've never been Chinese. Right? We are projecting that I know what it's like to be this thing, but we've never actually been that. How do you know that those feelings that you have really are man feelings for me to be a man? Right? And here's what's interesting to me. When I show you that picture of Caitlyn Jenner in the very beginning, what do you see? He transitions to being a woman, and what does he do? Shaves his legs, gets high heels, tight-fitting dresses, eyelashes maybe, long hair, makeup, earrings, jewelry. And what is he saying about what it means to be a woman? All you are just your physical attributes. And he's just undone years of feminism, which says women are more than just sex objects to be looked at. Why is it nobody says, I want to be a woman, so I'm going to study mathematics? Because women study mathematics. Why doesn't anybody ever say, I want to be a woman, so I want to learn how to style hair? Because women style hair, just like men cut hair. Why don't we say that? No, we just say, I want to be a woman, so I'm going to change my physical. And it's just saying, women, all you are just physical objects. That's all your substance is. Third, being male or female is good. There's so many differences between men and women. I'm going to talk to you about some of them. For example, women have better muscle endurance than men. Women function better during sleep deprivation. They have a better sense of smell and taste. But men have more blood cells. Men are more likely to be colorblind. They have thicker skin by about 25%. So there's biological differences between men and women that go beyond just your reproductive area. The skull sizes are different. So somebody who's digging up a skeleton is going to look at the skull, the chin shape, look at the eyebrow shape, look at the jaw shape, and they can determine whether it's a male skull or a female skull. It's how archaeologists do this stuff all the time. They can look at the bones and see what it is. Again, like I said earlier, there is such a thing as a male or female brain. Dr. Deborah So wrote the book called The End of Gender. She is a hard atheist and says that she is more liberal than Bernie Sanders. That's how she defines herself, not a believer. And also looking at this particular article on nature.com, here's what we know about the brain. Around 7 weeks, if the embryo is male, the testes begin to secrete testosterone, which masculinizes the brain. If the embryo is female, this masculinization will not happen. RNA sequencing has identified 103 transcripts that are expressed differently between male and female brains. Because of what testosterone does to the brain, specifically the central nervous system, there are differences in male and female brains before birth ever occurs. So guys, you are born biologically male, biologically female. So I can take all the testosterone I want, but I will still think like a female. Guys can take all the estrogen they want, but they are still going to think like a guy because that's already the way that your brain has already formed. Let me show you some of the differences. The synaptic patterns are different in men and women. The neuron density is different in men and women. The right posterior cortex is thicker than the left in males. I mean, there's all these things that are just physically even different about the brain. So what we're so focused on is changing the external and the reproductive as if there isn't more to you than that. You are fully a woman or fully a man. It isn't just certain parts of you are female and the rest of you is not. It's not how it works. And every cell in your body that has a nucleus, you have your DNA. And that DNA is going to be unique to you. And if you're female, generally you're going to be XX. And if you're male, generally you'll be XY. That is not always true, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. But that's generally the way it goes. And that's in every single one of your DNA cells. And every single one of your cells that has a nucleus. So, I can take all the testosterone I want, but I'm not going to change my cells. So you can't ever fully become the other. That's only external stuff. And finally, it's almost as if God, in his infinite wisdom, knew that in 2026, we'd be struggling to know whether or not we were male or female. So he says, let me help them out. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to wait till Revelation and make them read all the way through the Bible. I'm going to help them answer this right in the very first chapter. And so in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, you know this verse. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. In other words, when you look at the Hebrew word for create, male and female, who created them, that Hebrew word means to shape or to form. In other words, it's a physical description. You are shaped female. You are formed male. This is a physical, biological description that the Bible helps us to understand whether we're male or female. It doesn't say you're a woman because you like to cook or a woman because you clean, but you're actually shaped this way, formed and created as a male or formed and created as a woman. Dr. Paul Brand was a medical doctor, and he spent most of his time in India dealing with leprosy patients in the 1900s. And because of so many people died from leprosy, he had the opportunity to study a lot of skeletons, which he did. And in studying the skeletons, he learned a lot of things from the bones. So he looked at some 600 skeletons. That's a lot of skeletons. Here's what he learned. He says the size of the pelvis tells you whether or not it's male or female. When the pelvis is shallow and broad with an inner ring that's smooth, it belongs to a woman. A man's pelvis is more narrow, heart-shaped, and was formed with heavier bones. The women's pelvis has a unique oval opening which matches the size and shape of a baby's head. So just from looking at the bones, Dr. Brand can tell a lot. Again, an archaeologist digs up something, they look at the skeleton, they can look at the pelvis, they can look at the skull, and they can tell whether or not it's male or female. There's no evidence that testosterone or estrogen is going to change your skeletal structure. But then he goes on to add a very interesting point, and I think it's worth reading. The female runner still lags behind the male, and blame rests on the pelvis. The projection on the man's pelvis allowed for more powerful muscles, but a woman equipped with them could not bear a child. Similarly, a man's hip sockets are closer together near the center of gravity, which enables more efficient movement. If a woman's were similarly designed, there'd be no room for the baby's head to extrude. So the odd pelvic bone represents a summation of many different requirements. When a woman wishes she could run faster, or sway less, or have a narrower base, let her know that the survival of the human race depends upon her being just the shape she is. Guys, you are intentionally designed fully 100% male or female. Ladies, you will never be as fast as the guys. And the reason is because your pelvis needs to be in the shape to be able to birth a baby. So they're going to be faster. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay. We live in a society today, guys, that tells us that we need to be dissatisfied with ourselves, and we shouldn't like ourselves, and all of these kind of things. And it makes us feel, we look at ourselves and we just think we're so ugly, we're so disgusting, because we don't match the standards that we see on social media or the images and pictures we don't see. But Stacey Elder says, it breaks my heart when women look at the sky and think, wow, God is amazing, but look in the mirror and say, ugh, as if he did not make both. We need to not allow the culture, guys, to define our beauty, our worth, and our value. As believers, you have an advantage because you actually know what your value is because the Creator himself has told you. As a non-believer, you don't have that, and you're searching for that. And what you don't want to do is be in pain. And anything you can do to get out of being in pain is what you'll do. So people ask me all the time, if you're struggling with transgenderism, or somebody you know is struggling with transgenderism, or you're a parent who has a kid who's struggling with transgenderism, what should you do? So I'm going to tell you what to do. Get off social media, number one. Get off social media. Do it as quickly as you can. Run. Do not pass go. Do not collect any $200. Get off social media. Okay? Even if you have any mental health issues, depression, anxiety, whatever, get off social media. You will instantly feel better within, honestly, it sounds crazy, 24, 48 hours. It happens pretty quickly. Okay? Get off it. Number two, if you know somebody who's struggling with transgenderism or you're struggling with gender dysphoria, whatever it might be, you may need to change schools or change your friend groups. Why? Because remember, it's a social contagion. So if you're around people that actually are completely fine with who they are, you're going to be fine with who you are. If you're around people who don't like themselves, it's going to influence you. I know a young lady, actually, who is in high school, started struggling with being a girl, and then she thought she was a boy. Her mother said, oh, really? So her mother took her out of public school, put her on online school at home. All of a sudden, she doesn't feel like a boy anymore. It happens that quickly, okay? Within weeks, months. Get off social media, change schools, change friend groups, seek mental health therapy, get mental health counseling, not for gender dysphoria, but for your depression or for your ADHD, whatever it might be. Get mental health counseling. And the fifth, please, under no circumstances, allow somebody to get on hormones or puberty blockers. You're going to change your name, change your name. But when you start taking the puberty blockers and hormones, those start doing irreversible damage to your body. So please do not get on any medications because you can't go back. There's a really great website. If you know somebody who's struggling with gender dysphoria and you want them to get, you don't know what kind of counselor to send them to because you don't know who's going to affirm the gender dysphoria or not, there's a great website called therapyfirst.org. Therapyfirst.org. This is a group of therapists who are specially trained to counsel somebody through their gender dysphoria, not to encourage them to transition. There's a group of therapists that say, we want to help you process this, but they are not going to encourage you to transition. Okay? Therapyfirst.org is where they need to go if you know somebody who's looking for a good, solid therapist. And finally, and then I'm going to turn it over to Q&A. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And in the 80s was when the AIDS crisis was hitting all the airwaves, and we were learning all about it. I remember when this one kid, Ryan White, died from AIDS. He got it from a blood transfusion. They didn't know that it could be transferred in the blood. And they gave it to this one kid, and he died. And I remember the day Ryan White died. I don't know what I was, 9 maybe. And the church was newish to the LGB. It was really a more LGB issue then. And the church chose the position of mocking, of ridiculing, of look at these sinful people, trying to act like imitating their emotions and things like that on the stage, while these people are dying of AIDS. And I remember being a teenager and being mortified and ashamed and embarrassed of what I would see from the pulpit. And all I could think of as I was watching the way Christians were responding to the gay community is all that kept happening was I kept thinking of the woman who was at the feet of Jesus who was caught in the act of adultery. And it was the religious people who put her, not the man, by the way, because usually when you commit adultery, there's a guy there, but whatever. So they put the woman there, not the guy. What do we do with her, Jesus? Look at her. She's a sinner. She's filthy. We Pharisees, we're good because we tithe. We follow all the rules. We're good. But she's filthy. And you know what else, Jesus? That Old Testament, the law says that she should die, which it does. But it says she and him should die. But they left that out. It does say that in Deuteronomy 22. She should die. So what are we going to do, Jesus? She's a sinner. She deserves death. What are you going to do? Now Jesus is faced with two options. If he tells them to pick up stones and starts to stone her and kill her, like Deuteronomy says, the guards that are walking around making sure that there's no unrest are going to come down and they're going to arrest people. Because Jews couldn't carry out capital punishment. That's why they had to bring Jesus to Pilate. They couldn't do it themselves. But if he ignores it, well, now you're saying the law doesn't matter. You cannot be the Messiah if you're not following the law. And so they have this trap for him. And what does Jesus do? He looks at her, looks at them, writes something in the ground, which I would love to know what he wrote, but he didn't tell us, and says, okay, go ahead and follow the law. Start stoning her. If you don't have any sin. Because he's making a really interesting point. Only the sinless can punish the sinner. The sinless can punish the sinner. So you don't have sin. Go ahead and punish her. Go ahead and take her life. Or I would even say, maybe he's even saying only the sinless is the one that can take life, which is a whole nother thing. Regardless, they can't do it. They're mortified. It's an honor-shame culture. If they start stoning her, then they're saying that they've never done anything wrong, and they knew they've done anything. They knew they've done things wrong. So they can't do it. They'd bring dishonor to their family because they'd be lying publicly. They can't bring dishonor to their family. So they're trapped. So they just walk away, and now it's Jesus and her. And he doesn't affirm it. Doesn't affirm it. He asks her where they went. She says, they're gone. And he says, well, I don't condemn you either. But don't do this again. He acknowledges the sin, but he protects her from the punishment. Because here's the reality, guys. We've stopped the story there and we just move on to the next thing. But you know who doesn't forget what Jesus did? Are those religious leaders. And they will come back for him. Because they remember how he humiliated them. And they will come back for him. And one day they will get him because somebody will die for her sin. It just wasn't going to be her. So when I saw what was happening with the LGBT community, this was the only thing I could see in my head as a teenager, is that gay person at the feet of Jesus and all of us religious people saying, look at him. He's so filthy, he's got a disease that's going to kill himself, God. Look at him. And Jesus covering. Because what Jesus understood and what we don't understand and what the Pharisees miss is it's not just her at the feet of Jesus. It's not just the LGB person at the feet of Jesus. Guys, it's all of us at the feet of Jesus. We are all there. It's no her and the Pharisees. It's everybody's at the feet of Jesus. And it is my desire that we as a church in 2026 can be different. We as a church can look at the sinner who's in that hole because of what they've done or their body, because of how the culture has responded to them and how the culture has turned on them. And we can look at that person in the hole and say, you know what? I get that you're not a Christian, or maybe you are, but I'm going to climb down in that hole with you because I too was down there before Jesus pulled me out. And if we could for once be the hands and feet of Jesus to people that are broken, it would give us a whole different testimony, guys. Let's not be the church of the 80s and 90s that was horrific and pointed fingers. Let's be the church that Jesus would have wanted. He says, I don't condemn you either, but don't do this again because I've died for your sin. When you hear the word gender dysphoria, what comes to your mind? Or the final thing I need to say, sorry. The reason why I think this story always touches me is because it affirms that the sinner is still an image bearer. That the sinner is still somebody that Jesus died for. And since we're all sinners, it means we are all image bearers. And what happens in the church is we seem to think that because we are saved, that we somehow have a better image than the unsaved. That's a lie that you tell yourself. We are all equally valuable in the image of God. And as image bearers, we are all people on a quest to find and reunite back with our Creator. You just got there. That is an amazing blessing. But some people are still on that journey. But they are no less an image bearer than any of you, even in their mutilated bodies. Their bodies that can't have children now. Their bodies with skin gone from their arm or from their stomach. Their bodies with genitalia that's numb. They are no less image bearers than any one of you in this room. And we need to always see people, guys, whether they're Mormon, Muslim, or trans, through those eyes. Okay? When you hear the word gender, or transgenderism, or gender dysphoria, what comes to your mind? I feel like there's maybe a word that can't be uttered or spoken, but it's kind of showing on your faces. But it's like a combination of like heartbreak and devastation. I've seen multiple tears today. I'm glad. I'm glad. I want your heart to break for this. I don't want you to watch Alycia Vine's tears and sit there numb. And I think that shows how the progress, or maybe the work that the Lord can do in our lives in a short amount of time in the last couple hours we've had together. To go from confused and gay, deceived and insecure, coping, denial, these words that we used, to even struggling being able to put our emotions into words now. I think that's a good thing, guys. You take that brokenness, you take that devastation, now that you're aware, now that you understand what their life is like, you take that heart and that passion when you speak to somebody who's struggling with gender dysphoria. They are not just an object to talk to, they are an image bearer who is in need of help. And now you've got some answers and some ways to be able to help them. I want to give you some time for Q&A and for you to be able to ask some questions. And we'll be doing more Q&A, so this is not the only time, but we have plenty of time to do more. But any kind of Q&A questions that come to your mind right now, or even any thoughts, as it's a lot to process. I'm sorry, no, today was heavy. Today's probably, this is the heaviest day. Okay, so I know it's heavy. But yeah, any questions or thoughts? Yeah. Oh, look at all these hands. All right, we'll let you run around.
It seems like, I'll just be rapid. It seems like the further you get into this, the more informed you are about it, the more absurd it seems from the outside. And so what do you think the motivation is of the medical community, who are obviously, you can't claim ignorance on their part, and you also can't claim that they're confused and just because they're not the ones doing the transition. Is it just sadism? Like, that seems reductionistic. What's driving them?
So what's the motivation of the medical? I think there's a couple things. Number one, I think that many people in the medical community believed that this was the right thing to do. Okay, they ignored their own judgment and they believe it's the right thing to do. I think secondly, a lot of people had their jobs threatened. Therapists were at risk of losing their licenses if they didn't affirm. Doctors were at risk. They could not speak up. They were silenced. It's very reflective of our culture. You don't say what I want, we shut you down. So many people were very intimidated and could not be honest about where they were at. I think some of them, especially the health insurance, not the health insurance companies, the drug companies have massive incentives to push this. Because when I take testosterone, I take it for the rest of my life, guys. I become a drug-reliant person for the rest of my life. I'm doling out money after money after money after money to the drug companies. So they have massive incentive to keep this going. So I think it was a serious thing. I think a series of things. I think a lot of people just bought into it. A lot of people didn't and were scared and they couldn't talk. And a lot of people just thought this really is how it's going to help. And then you've got just the financial incentive. These are people that are coming back to you all the time for patients. You know, patients are coming to see you and you're getting more money when they come to see you. The drug companies are getting money because you're prescribing all these drugs. I think it's a combination of things. And now doctors are starting to speak up and they've been able to speak up. Therapists have been able to speak up. So the tide has turned drastically. We're not all the way there, but it's massive strides. There was a big Supreme Court case I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before, Scrimetti versus United States. Scrimetti, I think he's the Assistant Attorney General or the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, brought the case to the Supreme Court because they wanted to, in the state of Tennessee, determine whether or not they would allow transitioning in their state. They brought it for the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court made the right decision, I believe, by saying we will allow the states to determine whether or not they will allow transitioning in their states. Same thing they did with abortion. They put it back down at the state level, which is where it needs to be. Okay? Put it back down. I think, and I was talking with somebody yesterday, and she had the suggestion. I think it's a good one. I think it's what they maybe need to do with immigration. Problem with immigration is you cross borders, and it makes it a federal issue. But putting things down at the state level, because as a big country, we're not going to agree on things. So you allow people, the voters in their state, to determine what their state will do. The state can do what it wants. The state can do what it wants. So now certain states can decide whether or not they will be a state that allows for transitioning of minors. California is always a little tricky because California is what's known as a sanctuary state. And this has been for years. In other words, if I have a 13-year-old daughter, she wants to transition to being a male and I won't let her. She can get herself a plane ticket and go to California, and California will protect her from me and go ahead and let her transition. It's a sanctuary state. Just wild. But that's what they will do. Okay? There was a couple hands over here.
How do you recommend, if you have like a person in your life who is transgender and they've transitioned and they like obviously go by a new name.
Yeah.
Like, how do you affirm like the truth without, well, obviously I'm not worried about like being offensive because I know the truth is offensive, but how do you love them in that way where like you don't submit to like the lie of this new identity, but like you still honor them and this like what they're going through, you know?
Sure. So basically, so you're saying, how do you use the name?
Like, should you call them by their new name or like,
or the pronouns, awesome, right? So I have given this thing so much thought. I've talked to people in the trans community to ask, how do you feel when somebody doesn't use your name? How do you feel when somebody uses the preferred pronoun? Like, to try and get kind of the gauge. And what I've gathered is they really don't see a difference between a name and a pronoun in terms of usage, right? So it's not like some people will say, don't use a pronoun, but use the name. And that's what I hear a lot of Christians say, is that never, ever, ever use the pronoun because you're affirming, but use the name. And it's like, well, so when I ask them, they see them the same thing. The name and pronoun are the same thing. So I don't think that really works. And so I think the big fear for Christians is that if I use the name or the pronoun, it's going to indicate that I believe and I support what they're doing. Okay. And that is the assumption that Christians make. However, I don't think that that's always the case. So if I'm sitting here, so here's an example. I was just in speaking to high schoolers, and there were these two trans people up front. They come up to me and they tell me their name. The young lady gives me her name of Damien. I have no idea what her biological name is. In that moment, I can't say, tell me your real name. Okay? I'm sure she wasn't named Damien. That's the name that she's taken on. And it's not a battle I need to fix. They're asking what the Bible says in LGBTQ stuff. So I did the LGB first, then I did the T. And so I explained what the Bible says and where it is on that kind of stuff. So they know I'm not affirming it, but I'm still calling her Damien. So in other words, I think when I've been able to, so here's my answer to you. And I will tell you guys, this is where I'm at. I'm not saying I'm 100% right. Here's where I've settled right now. I might have a different answer next week or next year. So I'm giving you, this is where I'm at. Okay, I'm putting that caveat in there because I think this is tough and I don't have every answer 100%. Okay, so this is where I'm at, and you ask another Christian and they're going to give you a different view and they're going to call me a heretic. Okay, so I want you to understand that that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm giving you what I have at this moment. As long as I can make it clear throughout the conversation that I actually don't affirm that they're really a boy or a girl, then I don't care if I call them the name or the pronoun because it loses its effect, right? So they just know, okay, you're calling me Damien, but you really don't think I'm a boy. Okay, then I don't think about affirming. If my concern is affirming, then as soon as throughout the course of the conversation, so it's even something like this, oh, wow, so tell me your story, because as a Christian, we have such a different view on this. So tell me your story, Damien. So they already know I'm disagreeing. And I've called the name. So I don't have to worry about the affirmation. So for me, I feel like that's worked for me to be able to get around, to do it. Because what happens is if I don't use the name or the pronoun, they just shut down. And now the conversation doesn't go anywhere. Or you guys have a dinner party. She's transitioned to being a boy and is now called Michael. So I'm at your dinner party. I don't know her from beans. I walk in and it's Michael. I'm like, I'm not calling you Michael. That's going to show I'm affirming your name. And you're going to be like, what are you doing? That's so rude, right? You're just going to get kicked out. Like things aren't so easy and clean, guys, that you can just be like, here's a blanket never, ever, ever when it comes to this particular topic, right? I don't know any other name that they go by. So I'm going to call Michael. And if I sit there and go she all night, you guys are going to be like, can you just leave, Alycia? Because you're just rude. Right? And so it's like, I don't know how this works in a way. And I will tell you, I don't think it's right in the sense of, I think that there's an aspect of manipulation where if you don't do what I want, I won't associate with you. So I don't think that's right. But I'm wondering if I can grant the name and the pronoun, but I'm not granting anything past that in terms of affirming that you really are, a boy or girl, if that's what you transition to or anything like that. So that's where I am. But I think relationship matters. So like when I went up to a counter recently to buy a book, it was clearly a young girl who had transitioned to boy because she had all this facial hair and all this kind of stuff. So I call her by her name. I don't remember what the name was. But if it was my little sister, or if I'm a parent, it's my child, the parent never should affirm. Okay? That's a different situation. The parent has a special role in a child's life. The parent should not affirm the name. The parent should not affirm the child's pronoun. That is a different situation. If it was my little sister and she wants to be a boy, I'm most likely not going to affirm that. Now, if it's going to cause, if everybody else in the family wants to affirm the name or whatever, and I'm the only oddball and it's causing all this tension, then maybe I'll say, fine, I'll call you the name, even though you know I don't agree with it, whatever. It may not be the battle I fight. But if I was a parent, never. Okay? Family member, I'll dig my heels a little bit more. With a friend, it's different. So there's situational things here. Okay? It's a good question. What's my time? We're at time. Okay. All right. What you got?
When it comes to discipling in the church, I work specifically with youth.
Yeah.
Who haven't gone as far as transitioning but changed clothes and appearance. How do you walk with them and support someone navigating gender dysmorphia without pushing behavior modification?
Yeah, so here's a really important thing I need for you guys to all understand. Ready? Newsflash, I know this is going to be so shocking to you. You are not the Holy Spirit. Okay? Do not think it is your job to change behavior. Okay? The Holy Spirit is good at his job and he doesn't need your help. Okay? What the Lord does not ask us to do is to sanctify people. Okay? So what I would do with anybody is, I'm in a conversation right now with a young man and potentially pretty soon with these two other people that I just met. He identifies as gender queer. He's not changed his name or anything, but he's gender queer and he hangs around with trans people. We're just digging into the Old Testament. We're just learning scripture. He likes the Bible. He wants to dig in deeper. That's all we're doing. He knows where I stand because he's heard me speak on it. We're digging in. I'm not going to sit here and continuously tell him why he needs to not be what he is. So the way that I think any behavioral transformation happens is you draw people closer to Jesus and the Holy Spirit works in us to will and do for his good pleasure. That's what he does. But if you get that reverse, if you try and make people live like Christ before they like Christ, they end up resenting Christ. And that's what we oftentimes mess up at. So I'm not an advocate for trying to change behavior. You talk to the people that are Christians that were living in gay lifestyles that are now Christians and have left that. They will tell you what changed them from one lifestyle to the other was just recognizing the supremacy of the biblical text and Jesus Lord, and they submitted their desires to him. Not because some conversation somebody had with them. So I would think, take the pressure off of you that you have to try and change, but in the same sense, walk with them. Now that you understand the background, see what kind of mental health counseling they're getting. Maybe they can go to the therapy first and find a good counselor from there. Focus on the mental health. Keep an eye on them, making sure that they're not taking any meds. If they're just doing the name and the stuff like that, just fine. Just don't. I wouldn't. Just as long as it doesn't go further than that, because that's easily reversible. And helping us to continue to draw them closer to Jesus. That we are created in a certain way. We are created male or female. He loves us for who we are. He didn't make a mistake with us. That we can actually find joy in, who we are and this kind of thing. But also, it's really so tied to mental health. It is, people always think it's tied to identity, and it isn't tied as much to identity as to mental health. You get the mental health right, this will change. So I would really focus on the mental health piece. That help?
So good.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys, I would